Hey guys, what's up? It's TinyBox here. Welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to be giving my reaction slash review for Season 1, Episode 5 of I almost said Let's Play. Wow, I'm stuck in my Let's Play mode for gaming. For the new Boomerang original, it's weird to say, Scooby Doo show titled Scooby Doo and Guess Who. I still think they should call it Guess Who Scooby Doo. Sounds way better, but that's besides the point. Way easier to say. This episode was starring Ricky Gervais, and I thought it was decent. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it, and I'll talk about those reasons in the latter part of the video. But for right now, I want to talk about the things I liked. Ricky Gervais was really funny. He made me laugh quite a few times. There were some really funny puns in the show, or this episode, excuse me. Just with physical humor as well as just clever play on words. Some self-aware humor as well, which was funny, but that's pretty much about it that I liked. Let's talk about the negative side of things, because they are unfortunately a big part of the show for me. Like, I genuinely respect and love the creators of the show and everyone involved for giving it their best, but it's just not working 100% for me, and I want to talk about those reasons in this episode. And I know I've been talking about them, and I've been really, trying to give my opinion on them in each of the episodes, and like talking about why I didn't like the way they did something. And I'm going to try to hopefully do the same for this video as well in this episode. Like I said, Ricky Gervais was really funny. Great comedian, just hilarious. There was a lot of funny lines with him. The thing that I don't like, and I talked about this in my Zombie Island, like why I love Zombie Island videos so much, and it actually did click in my head, like last week I think it was, how I love how there's polarizing elements with the show. Like when something is being like extremely creepy on screen, there's always a counter attack or counterbalance of some comedy mixed in there, and that's why I love Scooby Doo so much. And it's kind of like pretty much why I love just the cartoon in general. I love when something is dark mixed with comedy. It's almost like Stranger Things for me. It's pretty much my favorite show of all time at this point. Just like it has dark stuff on it, but there's also funny moments in there and lighthearted stuff. And that's kind of like what I've picked up on with Scooby Doo, especially like on Zombie Island. Like, don't get me wrong, the plot matters in Zombie Island, but in the plot in this, it could, it's whatever. It's a throwaway plot, and it's pretty much, it's art thief, or a jewel thief, excuse me. I don't expect Scooby-Doo to have, like, really masterminded plots for the villains, not at all. What I don't like about this show, in this episode, is just, they try to make it creepy, but the monster design is just so cartoonishly dumb, if that makes sense, or just so, like, not creepy creepy at all. The characters treat it like it's scary, like, and I know I understand that that's polarizing technically, how it's like, oh, they're freaked out by it, but it's not scary. That's the joke or whatever. I don't know if that's what they're going for. Just the monster design looks so mediocre. Like, you have this, what was it, an Egyptian god or a kid or cat of an Egyptian god or something. I don't know. They explained it in there. I do not remember. I apologize. It doesn't really matter. But you have like creepy lore there to work with, right? You have like this creepy folk thing. Like there was like the Mummy episode in What's New Scooby Doo in Egypt has the creepiest. It's one of the creepiest things I've seen in Scooby Doo. I mean, minus Zombie Island, but the thing like rips off its face or whatever, and it has like worms. It's disgusting. And I'm not saying that this show has to have like the scariest monster designs, but I wish there was something more, like, I don't want to say original, because I don't think I've really seen there's been cat creatures on Scooby Doo and Zombie Island, the cat creatures, but it was just so like uneventful and just so unmemorable, if that makes sense. There was nothing really about the design of it where I was just like, I'm gonna remember that. Like, if I go back to What's New Scooby Doo or Where Are You, like Black Knight Ghost from Where Are You, like I picture that, even though it's just a hunk of armor with eyes or whatever, I still remember that. That has like distinct memories in my head. I can think of the Titanic twist from What's New Scooby Doo. Like, that thing's freaky. 2 arms on one side of its head, its face is all distorted. That's creepy. The Sanford Psycho from What's New Scooby Doo. Let's see. I could name things all day. Captain Cutler's Ghost from Where Are You, etc. But with this, like, in this entire show, the only monster that is at all memorable that I can picture in my mind, and even at that, it's like a very slim representation of what it actually looks like, are the Screaming Skulls of London, or whatever it was, from last week's episode. and they were okay. That was the best design, but it wasn't Sanford Psycho creepy. It wasn't the like Black Knight, creepy. And you could argue Black Knight Ghost is not too creative, but yeah, I disagree. I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased to that show, but I don't know. The art style for me, it's too. And this is going to be something that I kind of talk about, and I don't want to say this is about the content of the episode because, like, in terms of writing, because the writing I think is pretty good. It's not bad at all. It's funny. There are some bad parts to it. They reused the joke about from last week's Sherlock Holmes episode. Or I know it wasn't supposed to be Sherlock Holmes or whatever. Somebody in the comments like left this thing like talking about like how I did. It was like they clearly said it wasn't him. I was like, I literally went on a tangent about that in my video. Please watch it if you're gonna comment and criticize me, whatever. I don't know. What was I talking about? They reused jokes in there, like the whole Daphne translate. They didn't technically reuse it, but they did a very similar like thing where they did the same thing, but with just different characters. Like in the last one, I think it was Daphne that translated it. Like Sherlock Holmes would say something like with like a British like like euphemisms or whatever, and then she would translate it of what he was saying because nobody else understood him. I was like, okay, that was funny or whatever. Or maybe it was somebody else that did it. Either way, and it's the exact same thing. Ricky Gervais did something funny, which was genuinely funny. Like I don't know why they had to like do the same joke again. It boggles my mind. And I know that you aren't expecting like people to like watch every single episode or whatever in a row and expect to like remember jokes, but in my head I do, especially when it's like back to back, like within like 4 or 5 days of watching him. But like Ricky Gervais said something and then somebody else translated because it's like a British word and it's funny. Like it was funny, but like why did you have to explain it? And you already did that in the last episode. Perhaps I'm like reaching too far, nitpicking or whatever, and you could definitely criticize me for that, but that's just me. Like my brain doesn't like it focuses on past episodes too. Like I like to compare episodes and jokes and shows and in a season to say, hey, this is a better episode than this, and like this is the same as that, and it's this like it's what I do. So I can't really apologize for that. I mean I can, but it wouldn't be a sincere apology because that's just how my head works. But like I said, the monster design was so meh, and the plot was, the plot was good, right? Or not, okay, I say good, but it's Scooby Doo good. It's a jewel heist, or jewel thief, or whatever. Very obvious to decide who the monster is. Like, you can clearly see it from a mile away. There's, like, a whole scene in this that it's, like, so easy to be like, oh, you're going for that. That's really, I predicted that at the beginning, but now it's kind of like that. Another thing I liked about this is how they immediately got into the action of the episode. They were just like immediately on Ricky Gervais's couch. I don't even remember if they explained why. I could be wrong, but I don't think they did. In the last few, I always complained how they were like, they'd run into somebody famous, and then they'd have to have an elaborate backstory about how they knew them. It's like, the charm about the originals is that they had no prior connection to them whatsoever other than just like mutual knowings of each other, like they're being like famous or whatever in that universe. And that's what I always found interesting about it, how these two like strangers came together and like kind of worked together to solve a mystery. Like in the last like few, there have been like, oh, Wanda Sykes, I know you. You did that one dog show contest like 20 years ago or whatever. It's like, why is that even like relevant to the plot? Whatever. It's like I said, nitpicking, and a lot of this is going to be nitpicking. I'm picking apart a kid's show, so I mean I could genuinely criticize it for stuff, but as a Scooby Doo fan, as somebody that loves it and always will, like, whatever. I'm just nitpicking. But let's talk about. I had something genuinely really important to talk about in this. Oh my gosh. Oh, the animation. I don't know what it is about the animation. I like how it's more simplified, and at the same time I don't. I wish the characters had better design, if that makes sense. They look so simplistically drawn, if that makes sense. They look so simplified. And if that's like too nitpicky, then let me talk about like one of the ending scenes in the entire show, or in the episode. You know how they have like this purple dust or whatever that is used to lure the cats in the episode or something like that. And the joke is that Ricky Gervais spills it on himself or whatever, and then like a bunch of cats swarm him. But the first shot that you see is a bunch of cats on him, and then he explains what happened. Like, why didn't you animate him spilling it and then them jumping on him? That would have been way funnier, in my opinion, than just saying, like, the punchline of the joke and then explaining what happened. Like, that's the opposite order of how you're supposed to do things. Like, especially in a kid's cartoon where you're supposed to be, like, showing and not saying the humor, if that makes sense. It's more of like a physical humor thing if you're like trying to get that kind of reaction out of people. Like, I just don't know why they didn't animate it in that order. It was so bizarre. Like, they didn't show. I think the only thing I can imagine, other than like just not knowing the proper way to tell that joke, is just like they didn't want to animate the cats just jumping and him spilling it or whatever, which is kind of disappointing, to be honest, if that's the case. I mean, it could be a genuine, like, they didn't want to do it that way, or they didn't think about doing it that way. I just don't think that, like, I don't know, my head doesn't work that way. It's like, you just told a funny thing that could have happened, and then you explained what happened instead of showing it happen and then, like, laughing at it or whatever. I don't know. These could all be technically brought down to nitpicks. Overall, this episode was decent, and by decent, I mean decent for this show. Other Scooby Doo's, like, I would just go back and watch classic stuff or whatever, or even Mystery Incorporated's 10 times better. But it's not like the show is awful. It's just not Scooby Doo, if that makes sense. It is Scooby Doo, but it's like Family Guy, but somehow like a Youth 7 or PG rated version of a Family Guy parody. Not as Family Guy parody as Be Cool Scooby Doo's art style, but. And there are genuinely funny moments in this. Don't get me wrong. This is a good episode in terms of comedy and writing, right? But there are other things in factor and in play here, like just the animation, the way they tell the jokes, reusing jokes, just the arc overall. And yeah, it was decent for this show. Like, was it my favorite one? I honestly kind of want to say that the best mystery so far has been the Screaming Skulls one of London with Sherlock Holmes. Excuse me, I hit my keyboard up here. There's a keyboard in this. Never mind. You don't know the setup, what I'm talking about. Sherlock Holmes is probably the best one for mystery. And then I'd say Wanda Sykes and Ricky Gervais are pretty much equally tied for funniest in terms of like jokes. But in terms of mystery, like the only one where I had any sort of stake in the plot was the skull one. And even then I was just like, yeah, there really isn't much at risk here, or much at stake. And, you know, just after realizing the whole thing was Zombie Island with, like, how everything's polarizing, that's what makes Scooby Doo so good, in my opinion. It just, playing off, like, having the characters take a situation seriously can be funny if it's, like, not a serious situation. Like, if it's a parody, which this kind of is going for. But that's the thing, I can't tell if it's trying to be a parody of itself or not. I can't tell if they're serious about the plot, you know? Because sometimes characters say stuff that's self-aware and, like, funny, but then the next second they'll be screaming and running, but then the next second they'll be, like, just laughing. And I don't know how to describe it. It was a good episode for this show. Like I said, if you want to go out and buy Boomerang for this, I would wait until the very end of, like, when it comes out. On Boomerang, which this is what, episode 5, so got like, I think it said that this goes, I think it ends at the end of September, but I could be wrong. But yeah, great episode. Not great. It was okay. It was okay to good. That's what we'll say. It's like this. It's not a full thumbs up. It's like a diagonal thumb. I don't know. I just, and I'm not being just like nostalgically driven for this, by the way. Like, of course I'm biased in some regards to having nostalgia for the old Scooby-Doo, but I genuinely can go back on that. If I didn't understand, or if I'd never watched it before and I went back and watched it, I would immediately see the drop in quality from old to new, if that makes sense. So I'm not just going purely on nostalgia. Sure, a lot of this series is me talking about how I love them and how I like loved them as kids and like how a kid, and then how I kind of like grew into loving it even more. But with this, I'm experiencing this for the first time as an adult, and it's just like, yeah, it's not as well written as the other stuff. I don't know. I think the biggest qualm for me is just the animation, I think, and just design. Sounds weird, but It definitely looks better than Be Cool Scooby Doo. I just didn't like the art style in that at all. The art style in this is okay, but it's just the animation. I never thought I'd be nitpicky about animation. I've never really been that kind of guy, but for this, I can just tell there's stuff in there that would have been so much better if it were fully animated, or if there's more detail in some of the backgrounds. Like, imagine, like, remember in the Scooby Doo Supernatural episode, if you guys have watched that, I'm not going to spoil anything or anything, but, in one of the chase scenes, I'll just say this, there, in the background, you have, like, little joke things, like, running around, like, when they have all the doors on both sides, and everyone's, like, running back and forth from the monster. They show, like, Scrappy Doo and a bunch of other Easter eggs, and they're like, why can't you do something like that? Like, just little subtle things, not, like, over the top, like, with Magilla Gorilla or Funky Phantom just, like, randomly joining the cast. Like, just show something in the background. Make people that, you know, watch animations or cartoons to look, like, that rewatch stuff, to look in the background for little Easter eggs. And maybe there are some in this that I just haven't picked up on. But I just feel like the show could be so much more in-depth and detailed than these little 22-minute things. And it felt longer than it was, which is weird for me, because when I watch something, even if it isn't that great, time flies for me. But with this, I paused it like 5 times, and I never have done that with Scooby Doo at all, ever. And with this, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go do something else for a few minutes instead of this, because I was just so, like, not into it. But like I said, it's got some really funny moments. If you're gonna watch the show, watch it for the comedy. Do not go into this for any kind of, like, character development or mystery. Literally, this is a comedy show. Like, that's all it is. It's funny. Like, don't get me wrong, there are funny moments in this that made me laugh out loud, but it's not Scooby Doo, if that makes sense. It's different. I might make a whole video essay about this at some point, but, you know, my thoughts have been changing on every single episode, or they've been pretty similar, but they've been changing slightly as I'm trying to, like, in my mind, just, like, kind of narrow down what I just don't like about the show as much as I've loved about other shows in the past. I don't know. We're at 1,000, I think, and 7 subscribers, so thank you so much for 1,000 subs. That's so awesome. I have more videos planned on the channel that are just not just Scooby Doo. I have a Stranger Things Let's Play planned for the new video game that came out. I've been recording a few, so hopefully I'll get that finished up and I can start uploading those. I just have more content planned outside of the Scooby Doo realm of things. So if you guys want more of content like that's different than this, then stay tuned, because it is coming. But I seriously doubt that you're going to watch this if you don't watch other content on my channel, because it's like an 18-minute video. So I might just make an updated video or something in the future. I don't know. Maybe I'll start uploading the content. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Keep calm, trust your instincts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one, and peace out. And yeah, guess who, Scooby Doo or whatever. It's a good show. It's just not really for me as much as I want it to be, if that makes sense. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.